we're looking at, there's like a couple different pieces, right? There's the business foundational pieces, there's the processes piece and systems piece, and then there's the people piece, and then there's the growth piece, right?
Mm-hmm.
When we're looking at gaps, most of the time, we'll say most of the time, it always starts with a lack of clarity within either the ownership or the leadership. A lack of clarity of why the company exists, where it's going. There's lack of clarity in job descriptions, like what's expected of people. And whenever someone doesn't know what's expected of them, they're going to come to work, they're going to be frustrated. They are going to feel like they're going to be less productive. They're going to feel like they're wasting their time. And so one of the biggest things that I see over and over again is just this lack of clarity on the purpose of the organization, as well as helping people live in their strengths and really be fulfilled.
Hey everyone, it's Amy Lynn Durham, and you're listening to Create Magic at Work. Create Magic at Work is on a mission to equip senior leaders with tools they need to be a true quantum leader and actually understand what that means. Improve employee engagement, retain top talent, and transform your workplace culture to have less drama and stress. So let's start making magic. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Create Magic at Work. Today is an exciting, interesting day for me because Stephanie German is a guest who I asked to be on the podcast and share her wisdom around business and leadership. And I think this is only the second person that I've had as a guest on the podcast that is from my local community that I was able to actually sit at a coffee shop and have a conversation with physically in person. There hasn't been too many because the Create Magic at Work podcast, we pull in lots of leaders from all over the world. And so this is a special treat for me. So Stephanie is the owner and executive strategist at German Business Consulting. She's an adjunct professor at Fresno Pacific University and speaker. She holds a master's degree in organizational leadership and loves giving back to her community in a variety of ways. When she's not consulting and coaching clients or writing about business, Stephanie is usually headed to the mountains or the beach, which makes sense because we live right in between where we're from, with her family, drinking savory wine or working on the latest project with her husband. She lives in Fresno, California with her husband, Blake, and her 3 spunky daughters, Cara, Kinsey, and Peyton. She is the best-selling author of So Your Boss Can't Lead? ? What do you do from there? Would be the next question I have. Stephanie, welcome to Create Magic at Work.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here. Yes, and meeting in person is always more fun than just meeting virtually, right? So
yeah,
we had a great time at that coffee shop, and I'm so happy to be here with you today.
Yeah, thanks for joining. I want to start off talking about your book, So Your Boss Can't Lead, a practical guide to be the leader you want. What inspired you to write this book in the beginning?
So the reason I went to get my master's in organizational leadership is I was thrust into this leadership position. I was very young. I thought I should learn something about leadership. There's got to be more to it than, what I've experienced and seen in other leaders around me. And so actually the book came out of my graduate school. The last part of the program was either writing a thesis or doing some sort of project. And so I thought, sure, I'll write a book. Why not? So that's actually how it started, because I thought, we have these dreams where I thought, oh, when I'm old, when I'm much older, I will write a book someday, right? But the opportunity presented itself a lot quicker, and I actually let it sit in my computer for longer than I should have, and decided that it should be out in the world. So really the basis of the book, I'm going to be honest, it probably needs to be rebranded, but came from a place of, hey, what is leadership? What should it look like at the very basic level, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we are thrust into leadership positions, but we haven't seen good leaders around us, what does it mean to lead? So that was the basis of the book and where I was coming from 10 years ago when I first wrote it.
Mm-hmm. So good and so applicable today. I would imagine that there is still situations, there's not still, but constant situations where a role is filled with someone that possibly doesn't have the leadership acumen that they maybe need in that role. And of course, the goal is to learn in the role as well. But I love the concept that it's almost like empowering individuals to know that they can look elsewhere for strong leadership other than who they've been surrounded by in the first place. And so, where do I go when I don't feel like I'm leading effectively and I haven't been taught to lead effectively? How do I empower myself? What do I do? What would you say to that?
That's a great question. I think it really depends on your natural traits and behaviors. So for me personally, if I don't know something, I go out and learn it. And there's so many opportunities around us to learn. I think mentorship is something that we don't look to as often as we should. Not those that are, we work for necessarily, but those that we respect in our community, those around us. I'm always a big advocate of picking up a book and learning. It might not be, I say sometimes you pick up a book and it might not be what you need, but pick up a different book. There's so many, resources online for you to learn the theory behind it, but then you have to put it into practice,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where I feel like a lot of times individuals are promoted into leadership positions or leadership and management positions. They're different, but typically are looked at in similar ways
Mm-hmm.
where they were really good at doing the job. And so they got promoted. But
Mm-hmm.
being a supervisor, being a boss, you're no longer doing the job. A good leader gets the job done through their people and empowers them and guides them and leads them and coaches them and brings them along and makes them better than where they were at before that relationship began, or it should be. So I think there are so many different avenues to learn to become a better leader. But if you can find someone that models it very well, where you can see it done, I think that just helps propel the learning aspect as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. In SQ, spiritual intelligence, from an SQ lens, one of the skills is awareness of your values. And have you ranked them? And are you living by them? Because if your actions are aligned with your values, then you automatically feel more fulfilled in life. And so, what that brings up for me when you're sharing that is maybe it's time to do a values check. What's important to me?
Mm.
Do I know what my values are? If you need help getting clarity, of course, reach out to a coach like myself or a coach like you, right? And then now I can seek mentorship and look for someone that is in alignment with who I want to be and also what my values are. And also, I can look for people that I admire in that way.
Mm.
I think that's a big one. Just if you're thinking of, well, I don't know who I would reach out to for mentorship, a great place to start is, well, who do I admire? And then even if it's somebody that you can't reach out to and have a personal private conversation with, maybe it's an author or a book, like you said, pick up a book that you can read, an audiobook or something like that. So yeah, you got me going down that whole road of the values piece there. So I appreciate that. The other thing I want to ask you, because when we were having our coffee in-person chat, because everyone talks about a coffee chat in Zoom, but we got to have a real one. Yeah, when we were having our coffee chat, you made a comment that really stuck with me in a positive way. And it was all of the gaps you see when companies hire you to step in and help them along their journey, along their path with their businesses. Can you speak to some of those gaps that you see and why it's important that business leaders focus on those gaps?
Yeah. So when I approach working with a business, I look at it holistically. So I look at it as a living organism, right? Just like we as humans have all the parts need to be functioning well for us to be healthy and thriving. That is really how I approach working with a business.
Mm-hmm.
And when we're looking at, there's like a couple different pieces, right? There's the business foundational pieces, there's the processes piece and systems piece, and then there's the people piece, and then there's the growth piece, right?
Mm-hmm.
When we're looking at gaps, most of the time, yeah, we'll say most of the time, it always starts with a lack of clarity within either the ownership or the leadership. A lack of clarity of where, like, why the company exists, where it's going. There's lack of clarity in job descriptions, like what's expected of people. And whenever someone doesn't know what's expected of them, they're going to come to work, they're going to be frustrated. They are going to feel like they're going to be less productive. They're going to feel like they're wasting their time. And so one of the biggest things that I see over and over again is just this lack of clarity on the purpose of the organization, as well as helping people live in their strengths and really be fulfilled, right? It's a lot of times when I start working with someone, they think the problem is, like, they might think the problem is, oh, my employees are not productive. It's them, right? Well, the reality is it's you in some way, right? It might be that process piece that's missing, the systems piece that's missing. It might be the clarity in the job description or what's expected of them. And those are a lot of the big gaps that I see. And I always joke, I used to only do leadership development. That's really my passion, right? But I've been able to fold this passion into the larger piece where, like, yes, we do leadership development and leadership coaching within the systems that are in place and creating better systems to help the leader be better and do better. And they don't often know that there are these gaps because they're too close,
Mm-hmm.
right? I always joke that I'm the outsider coming in. And whenever you have someone looking from the outside in, they can see where the missing pieces are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's so interesting that you mentioned it is surprising when you look at some organizations, some of the gaps that haven't been closed. And I think because we show up to work, we get really busy, we focus on maybe the things that feel good to do, especially if we're like solopreneurs or entrepreneurs and we leave the things that don't feel that great to do
Yes.
kind of on the back end or on the back table. And yeah, one of those, I think, for a lot of individuals, I'm totally stereotyping and generalizing here, I'm gonna say at times for women, is assertive communication. I with my clients, it's one of the top topics that we kind of dive into. How do I say what I need to say in a kind and truthful way?
Yes.
How do I deliver these messages? So often these things like delivering a job description doesn't ever happen because I don't want to have this what might be a difficult conversation. I might be afraid that when I present this new job description to my existing team that they're going to give me pushback, or I might be stepping into a difficult conversation or a negative reaction from when I'm presenting it. So then I just avoid it and I don't do it. So what would you say to somebody that has fallen into that avoidance gap? We'll use the word gap again. And why should they Why should we step forward and do the stuff that doesn't feel good? What does that do for us later?
It takes when we do the hard things, it makes it easier in the long run. It doesn't feel good as an entrepreneur or creative. It doesn't feel good to sit down and write out processes. It doesn't feel good to write out job descriptions. It doesn't feel, that feels very difficult and hard, right? Trust me, I understand it. I preach it and I do it myself, but it's difficult. When you have a team of people and you understand how they work, I think the first thing you have to do is really cast that vision, how it benefits them, right? And so when I can sit back and I can look at the end result of where I'm wanting to go through that difficult conversation, it's easier to get through the conversation because I can see the other side of it. And when I can see the other side of it, I can say, okay, if I do X, Y, and Z, it's going to help with A, B, and C. And having those hard conversations, or if you hired someone to do a job, they're not doing their job. But again, there's a lack of clarity. So you create a job description. 9 times out of 10, they're going to be happy that there's some clarity around what's expected of them. We can't expect people to bring their best selves to work if we don't provide the sandbox for them to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
And it's us as leaders having to say, okay, this might feel difficult, but remembering, and hopefully you're a leader where you learn the communication style of your people and you understand the importance of body language and tone and coming at it from the right place and having that basis of trust is so important, because if you've shown that along the way, then there's an understanding that what you're bringing to the table is from a good place, right? It's from a good place to help them and to help the larger organization. And it should be a win for everyone in the end. So I don't know if that actually answered your question, but I kind of navigated through.
Yeah, it did. It did. I mean, again, I just want to point this out to all the listeners. I think we're talking about this and you just using job description as an example, right? But there's many, many things that we can avoid because there might be an uncomfortable moment that really, when facing that hard thing and moving through that uncomfortable moment, we come out on the other side with a lot more inner peace and feeling a lot more fulfilled at work. Because if you are frustrated with what is going on within your team, within your workspace, within your company, if you don't first look to ensure that there's clarity and close that gap, you're going to be the one that's frustrated and living with that negative emotion every single day. I'm frustrated things aren't going the way that I feel like they should. I'm frustrated that so-and-so isn't doing the procedure that we need to have done to ensure that our sales are great. I'm frustrated that this person isn't counting the inventory properly, or the inventory is not being rotated properly, whatever that is. So it's almost like a choice that we have to make. We either choose to have that what might be an uncomfortable conversation. Some people are super confident and just like, hey, here's the job description. Let's go over it, sign it. But I mean, with some clients, it's like, it's been a new challenge for them to work on their assertiveness and not worry so much about the other person's reaction. And, it's almost like boundary setting. You can practice that in your personal life. Also, it's like, here's a boundary I'm setting. This is for your greater good and for mine. And your reaction to my boundary is not really my concern at the moment, right? I'm open for feedback if I miss something. However, right? So, what have you seen with leaders that step into this and follow through with closing these gaps? What sort of results have you seen in their lives?
At the end of the day, if you don't have to reinvent the wheel every day, if you don't have to, guess what your staff is doing. I'm really big on clarity, descriptions, processes, numbers. I think numbers help people, and not like a hard and fast number, but having numbers around, hey, this is what it looks like. This is how we can measure success. This is how you can be successful, right? When all of that is set up and established, now there's two kind of routes here, right? If you're a solopreneur, you're doing typically most of those areas, right? You're doing the sales and marketing, you're doing the finance, you're doing the operations piece. And so you might be thinking, oh, I don't need to set up these things. Furthest from the truth. You set them up so that you have an understanding of how you can have a well functioning business, even as a solopreneur. And on the other side of that is if you have a team and you have the right systems in place, processes in place. I keep saying job descriptions. It's crazy to me sometimes the number of businesses that don't have simple job descriptions even, right? Or I'm really big on creating accountability charts, right? What are each of the positions responsible for? When you're able to put these things in place, it leads to less burnout typically. Everyone understands what's expected of them. So then you can have those hard conversations in an easier manner, because if your team member is very clear on their role and they're not doing what they need to do, it's, as a leader, you should always say, okay, am I not providing something they need, right, to be successful? And the second step would be then asking them, you're not doing X, Y, and Z. Can you share? Is there something going on? Right. So being open to listen to them and what's going on, but you're able to have those conversations, I want to say more easily. That's not the correct English language to use, right? But in an easier manner, right?
We'll take anything that sounds easy. Yeah.
But really at the end of the day, you should be creating, hopefully, like the end goal is creating a business that you love, creating a business that when you first started thinking about what you wanted to do and you had this grand vision, right? You're able to see this vision come to life and able to fulfill the mission you feel called to, and not stress about it every day, not be frustrated every day. And that takes work, but when you put in the work and you take the time, you are going to see those results in the end. And then in the end, that typically leads to greater profit, which, money, when we're putting all that effort out into the world and we're able to see the results, right? And you're fulfilling your vision. It's a win-win for everyone. Creating a win for you as the business owner, creating a win for your staff. That should be the end goal, right? Creating better workplaces and creating businesses that we love.
Yeah. And that's the reason why most of us are that. First of all, that's the goal of some of us in the corporate space, right? We want to do work that we love. That's always the dream. And then, of course, if somebody started their own business, it was built out of some sort of passion. And I think the biggest takeaway I have today is, how can these systems that we put into place allow us to have more vision and passion, give us that space and time to have more vision, have more passion. And sometimes if we have gone off and not focused on putting these systems into place, it can really turn around and we can feel exhausted. We can feel depleted. We can feel frustrated. And then we've lost our passion and our vision. So, that's really the takeaway for me is do the stuff that feels mundane that you need to do. So you have systems in place so you can have creative visualization for the future of your business. Yeah, that's what I've really gleaned from this conversation. The other thing I want to ask you is, how do you feel being a compassionate and wise leader? Where do you feel like that fits within your leadership development work? What is the response from people? Do you touch on wise and compassionate leadership when you're working through all of these things? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things, first of all, I love that you talked about that. I don't know much about spiritual intelligence, but the leadership, the values component is really big in the work that I do when I work with clients. But one of the things that I really try to help, business owners, leaders, department heads, supervisors, right? Whoever is the client, that we're working with, is to understand that everyone comes to the table with their own background, their own worldview, their own personality. And when you not only understand yourself, but you begin to understand others, you can approach them in light of having an understanding of where they're coming from. And I think that's really the starting point of being a compassionate leader, is that yes, there's a job that needs to be done. Everyone was hired to do that job. But at the same time, I'm really a proponent of servant leadership, which has that compassionate component to it, that understanding that sometimes the person has to come before the job being done, right? And there's a fine line there. You have to navigate that. But really starting, I think, to become a compassionate leader, you have to first understand yourself and understand those that you're leading to lead them better.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. That is very important. And I would take it a step further for Create Magic at Work. We actually have a really beautiful episode that we compiled a bunch of different leaders' definitions of servant leadership. I'm going to drop it in the show notes for this because it's a great one. It's so inspiring to just listen to all the different definitions. And with quantum leadership, servant leadership is definitely a part of quantum leadership. And it's where it's exactly what you said, where we're making decisions that impact not only the bottom line, but also our communities and the planet and humanity itself. And those business decisions rippling out in that way. So yeah, thank you for that answer. I'm going to take my journal prompt card deck. It's a deck of 33 cards that I designed for workplace and career. And you can buy it on createmagicatwork.net for your teams, for yourself. And I'm going to pull a card for everyone today. And for you, Stephanie and let's see what message is coming up for us. Oh, I love it. We got creativity.
Creativity.
Yeah. So creativity. I make time to daydream and I let ideas take shape into my reality. What an Edgewalker affirmation. Creative visualization for manifesting the future. I make time to daydream and I let ideas take shape into my reality. So wisdom that maybe you can offer the Create Magic at Work listeners. This is really great because I would love to hear what your thoughts are from your lens with working with companies. What are 3 ways that leaders, you don't have to say 3, but just like what are some ways that leaders can empower others?
Oh gosh, that's a good one. I thought we were going to talk about creativity, but yes, empowering leaders. Okay. I think a great way to empower others is, I'm a big proponent of Clifton Strengths. So it's an assessment and you're able to, it lumps into 34 behaviors or traits, the way we naturally behave. And I think whenever we as leaders understand how our people naturally behave, we are able to look at the lens of their job through the lens of how they naturally behave and find ways, right? This is where it's very intentional, find ways to help them lean into those strengths and the way they naturally behave so that they are more fulfilled at work. I think that's one way. I think another way is, I don't love the word delegation because I think a lot of times we think of delegating as in just handing off tasks or giving the tasks we don't like to do. But I think when we can delegate with intentionality, where again, we see where our team members may excel, or we've seen them rise to the occasion in certain areas, where we can then train them and then delegate items that they love to do. And it fills their bucket and empowers them. And there becomes a level with staff where you empower them to make bigger decisions, be involved in bigger projects. And when you're able to look at it through the lens of training and raising up and empowering, I think it's delegation is extremely powerful when we look at it through that lens.
Yeah, I think that's a great call out. Viewing delegation in a way where you're doing it to amplify someone else's strengths and help them feel more fulfilled. And then that's kind of moving into the mentorship piece and the building people up to grow and move forward in whatever way their strengths are, right? So thank you for offering that insight. Stephanie, if people want to connect with you and learn more, how can they reach out to you?
A couple different ways. I am on LinkedIn. It's LinkedIn, I think, .com/ Stephanie German. My website, germanbusinessconsulting.com. I'm also on, Instagram and Facebook, again, under Stephanie German. So, Instagram.com / I should say, Stephanie German. Same with Facebook. So try to keep it very simple under my name so people can find me, and would love to connect with your listeners out there. And if anyone ever has any questions, happy to help them along their business journey, their leadership journey.
Amazing. Thank you. We're going to put all those in the show notes. Thanks for coming on and sharing your insights. I think you gave a lot of ideas and valuable wisdom that people can take away and kind of chew on for a little bit. And I think my biggest takeaway today is, how can we be better at doing the stuff that doesn't feel that fun so we can have more fun? If that makes sense.
I love it.
Yeah,
it does. That's great. Go. Yes, I love it. Thank you so much for having me, Amy.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for being a guest. Thank you for sending magic to everyone. Hey everyone, Amy here. I am so excited to share this news with you. If you've been a longtime listener of the podcast, or even if you're new, you probably know that I weave spiritual intelligence through all of the episodes of Create Magic at Work. And we often talk about where you are at with making wise and compassionate decisions, what it looks like to be a wise and effective change agent. How do I put my ego aside and operate from my higher self? And if you've ever been curious as to what level you're sitting at in your life in those skills, I have some great news for you. I have loaded the SQ21 assessment on the Create Magic at Work website. This is something that only my private clients have access to in a coaching partnership with me. However, I have decided to give everyone access to the SQ21 assessment at a generous price, a small fee. You can take the assessment at createmagicatwork.net/shop, and you will get a printout that you can take with you the rest of your life as to where you're sitting, what level you're sitting at in the 21 skills of spiritual intelligence. This is an amazing opportunity. I encourage you to take advantage of it. Again, if you've ever been listening to all of the past episodes like, I wonder where I sit at making wise and compassionate decisions, or I wonder where I sit at being able to access my higher self, explore that curiosity and go to the website and take the assessment. I will also have that link dropped in the show notes so it's easily accessible to you here after the episode. And again, if you have any questions or if you just want to have a chat with me, I'm always available for a complimentary 30-minute coffee chat, so you can explore that as well. But get over to the website, take that assessment, and give yourself the gift of something that you can take with you for the rest of your life. Sending magic to you. I want to thank each and every one of you for coming back every week to listen to a new episode of Create Magic at Work and really helping to support and advocate for healthy leaders, workplaces, and lives for all of us. If you want any information on how to connect with me, click on the link in the show notes. You'll get access to all of the social media links for Create Magic at Work. Stay following along for more amazing episodes where we help you improve productivity and profitability in the workplace and decrease stress. Sending magic to everyone, and see you next time.